200 livres à la banque.
Suivi.
Banco suivi. Carte. 8 à la banque.
Suivi.
C'est suivi.
The house will cover the difference.
Bien, madame. Oui, monsieur. Changeur, s'il vous plaît. Carte. 9 à la banque.
I need
Carte.
another 1,000.
I admire your courage, Miss...
Trench. Sylvia Trench. I admire your luck, Mr.
Bond. James Bond.
And all that.
You said you wanted to know how to get Capone. Do you really want to get him? You see what I'm saying? What are you prepared to do?
Everything within the law.
And then what are you prepared to do? If you open the ball on these people, Mr. Nash, you must be prepared to go all the way. Because they won't give up the fight until one of you is dead.
I want to get Capone. I don't know how to get him.
Want to get Capone? Here's how you get him. He pulls a knife, you pull a gun. He sends one of yours to the hospital, you send one of his to the morgue. That's the Chicago way. And that's how you get Capone.
And all that.
Tell me, how did it happen, for God's sake?
Why does the sun come up? Or are the stars just pinholes in the curtain of night? Who knows? What I do know is that because you were born different, men will fear you, try to drive you away, like the people of your village. The Kurgan. He is the strongest of all the immortals. He is the perfect warrior. If he wins the prize, mortal man would suffer an eternity of darkness.
How do you fight such a savage?
With heart, faith, steel. In the end, there can be only one.
Chris Kelsey here with
Matt Howell.
And on this episode of The First Run, Matt and I discuss Sofia Coppola's latest film, her reunion with Bill Murray, On the Rocks, which was signed exclusively, Matt, produced by A24, released on Apple TV, because that is our life now. We're also going to, I guess, wrap up our makeshift On the Run Horror Anthology Marathon with the Amicus film, Asylum, which is one of the ones I've been really looking forward to seeing, Matt. I've been pushing these British horror anthologies for quite a while, so I can't wait to hear your thoughts. We'll tell you what's coming up on Blu-ray and DVD, your physical media picks featuring the straight-to-DVD and streaming picks of the week. And then finally, Matt and I are going to share our 5 favorite Bill Murray scenes. But let's go ahead and start everything off with a clip from On the Rocks.
Does my foot smell funny? Yeah! Because I was wondering...
We're watching Breaking Bad.
What?
It's really good.
It's a great show. Have you seen it?
Yes, I have seen it. It's great. It's not for kids.
What? Was there something bad on?
No. Yeah. Hey, look, I can shuffle.
Oh, wow, that's great.
We learned that all young girls should know how to shuffle and how to...
Bluff.
Bluff, right. And how do you bluff?
Poker face.
Poker face. Poker face. Poker face. Nice, nice.
So, Matt, Bill Murray and Sofia Coppola have reunited after the lightning in a bottle, if you will, of Lost in Translation. Not to dismiss Coppola's other work, but that film really is quite good. It was nominated for some Oscars at the 76th Academy Awards, winning Best Screenplay, nominations for Picture, Director, and Actor. So, does this reunion deliver another Oscar-worthy film?
I would say in any other year, no. But considering what year we're in and the absolute barren wasteland that has been the release schedule, I wouldn't be surprised if this got some Oscar love in the upcoming 2021 Oscar race. I think it's quite good. I don't think it's as good as Lost in Translation or even one of her earliest films, The Virgin Suicides, which I have a real soft spot for. But it is quite good, and I think just by the sheer fact that there's not a hell of a lot to choose from, that this will at least get some nomination love.
I'm on the fence, and I'm leaning towards your case, particularly the fact that there has not been a overwhelming launch or release of some really high quality, entertainment in that capacity. So why don't you tell the folks at home, what is On the Rocks all about?
So Rashida Jones is a young mother married to Marlon Wayans, who is basically has started up his own company or is a big part of a startup, and he works a lot. And she starts to suspect that he may be being unfaithful to her. Enter her father, played by Bill Murray, who is this kind of playboy who she has what seems like at one time relationship that was distant, but has since repaired because of his philandering ways. But they start to work together, try and find out if Marlon really is cheating on Rashida Jones.
There you go. So when I like that clip that we played, Max, I think it really does a good job of capturing the essence, everything that's good and bad about Bill Murray's character, and we'll get into that. So I enjoyed this as well, but it felt at times kind of slight to me, even though it's kind of trying to tackle these heavy issues. And there's atmosphere, but then there's the actual final product. And one thing I keep going back and forth on, and I'm not sure, maybe you can help me out with this, is does the film rely too heavily on Murray?
Yeah, I think so. I think Murray certainly brings a certain legitimacy to the proceedings. Not to take anything away from Rashida Jones,
Sure.
And not to give too much to Marlon Wayans, but I think obviously Bill Murray has become this kind of almost mythical figure in Hollywood, especially in indie circles at this point. So I think that Coppola is getting a lot of mileage out of just kind of his very presence and legend and mystique. But all that being said, I think, like I said, I think it's pretty effective. And I enjoy the fact that while it does seem kind of slight, it seems slight in a way that's very measured and purposeful. And I appreciated that. It's not so much like this kind of dire, really, depressing work where it could really use a lot of this heavy subject matter. It does have its moments of levity that kind of brings a certain degree of breath to it, which I think makes it all the better.
I think that's fair. One of the issues I have is I was watching the election results kind of roll in, and I'm like, I'm going to take a break from this and then watch, On the Rocks. But I think the problem is there's this very sad, kind of somber, melancholy tone to the vast majority of this film. And it's also illustrated by Coppola's palette choices, right? Not just the performances in the film itself. If you notice, too, almost the majority of the film basically happens either at night or at dusk or whatever the case may be. But it's always dark. And then once everything kind of resolves itself and we have our outcome, you notice everything kind of shifts now to daytime. So now the light is back and everything is maybe okay, depending on, how you view the ending of the film. But it was still a tough sit for me through all of that. So I'm trying to look at this objectively through a clear, clean prism instead of the one that was, that had enshrouded me for earlier in that day. So I think one of the more interesting turns in this film is one of the big shifts is when we get to Mexico. And I think Murray goes from charming kind of ladies' man, rogue, to being revealed as kind of self-absorbed and not a great father. His charm kind of overpowers all of these little moments throughout the film, right? They're kind of offset by his humor in all these interactions, in the way Coppola kind of frames him as, he's slightly estranged, but he loves her and her kids, his grandkids. And he clearly was not great to her mother, right? And all these little moments. But there's still an air, a patina of charm that he is able to go throughout this whole thing. And then when we get the reveal in Mexico, it falls away. And he becomes more, you see him more as the self-absorbed character, the father that left type of thing the whole time, right? And I appreciated that. And I thought that was an interesting turn by Coppola's part. And I think she handles it perfectly. I don't know, what did you think about that?
Yeah, I agree. Although I guess I come at it from a little bit of a different perspective, just in the sense that, throughout this entire thing, the relationship between Murray and Jones's characters are, you're left to put this stuff together in the spaces in between what they're saying, right? You can kind of read into everything you need to know. And what I do appreciate about this film is, one, Jones puts out this performance that she's, she knows what his flaws are. And she knows that it's like futile to try and change him or anything like that. He is who he is, but she's still, and maybe in spite of herself, loves him, and he still has, positive characteristics that are worth, being around. And I think what I appreciate most about this is, like, just as you said, a bit of his facade falls away, and she kind of lays out some of the crap to him that he's done. And at the end of it, though, it doesn't like crush his character. Like, it doesn't destroy his character for you. You always knew throughout the whole movie that something like that was there, but it's one of these things where it can be two things. Like, he can be two people. Like, he can be,
right.
A loving father, a doting grandfather. He can be somebody who's fun and give you what you need, but at the same time, he can be selfish and he can be rash. And, it's just coming to the terms with the fact, I think, is really that, he's both of those things, and those things are not going to change. And you just got to take the good with the bad, or the bad with the good in this case.
And if you take them both, well, then you have the facts of life.
Right.
So, no, I think that's exceptionally well put, Matt. I agree with you entirely. The film doesn't seem for me to have the same emotional heft that Lost in Translation did, though I found the ending to be here. I mean, it's a more resounding and gratifying ending in this film than Lost in Translation is, though I think Lost in Translation's ending is perfect. And I think it's one of the things why the film works as well as it does. There's a bit of an ambiguity at that last scene, right? But overall, it's. I think Coppola does a good job of kind of working through or presenting us with this examination of these parents, the relationships we have with our parents, as well as the ones that we have with our partners when at times they may become strained by forces out of their own control. So it didn't have the same heft to me that Lost in Translation did, but I think this is one of her better films since then. And I think it's well worth checking out. So I think I ended up giving On the Rocks, Matt, a B. Where did you fall down?
Yeah, I think I liked it a little bit more than you. I gave it a B+. I agree with you that it's not as good as Lost in Translation because it's not as immediately relatable as Lost in Translation is. Everybody's been in love or had like those kind of budding romance kind of things. Whereas this is more, you're examining your own relationship with your parent, and if you have them, your parental relationship with your children, and how those kind of all play together. So, I mean, that could be a very, very different experience for, a life experience for a lot of different people. So that it's going to hit in a different way. And it really is more about what you bring into it. Whereas I think Lost in Translation has more of a universal message that everyone can relate to on some level, where this is more going to probably tell you more about yourself and your relationships with your parents or your children and what that says, which I appreciated.
Sure. So On the Rocks is currently available on Apple Plus. So if you have that, you can check it out. So I'm sure it'll be available other places some point soon, or just buy a new iPhone or whatever it is. Get you a year of the service as part of that purchase. If you had a chance to see On the Rocks, we'd love to hear your thoughts. Shoot us an email at feedback@thefirstrun.com. Matt, coming up on Physical Need this upcoming Tuesday, November 10th, A film that we discussed earlier this year. It's getting its Blu-ray release as well as a 3-pack of the entire trilogy of films. But we're not going to use that clip, Matt. We're going to go with a little classic instead.
Trouble at the mill.
Oh, no. What sort of trouble?
One on crossbeam's gone out askew on treadle.
Pardon?
One on crossbeam's gone out askew on treadle.
I don't understand what you're saying.
One of the crossbeams has gone out askew on the treadle.
What on earth does that mean?
I don't know. Mr. Wentworth just told me to come in here and say that there was trouble at the mill, that's all. I didn't expect a kind of Spanish Inquisition.
Nobody expects the Spanish Inquisition. Our chief weapon is surprise. Surprise and fear. Fear and surprise. Our two weapons are fear and surprise and ruthless efficiency. Our three weapons are fear and surprise and ruthless efficiency and an almost fanatical devotion to the Pope. Amongst our weapons, amongst our weaponry are such elements as fear. I'll come in again.
I didn't expect a kind of Spanish Inquisition.
Nobody expects the Spanish Inquisition. Amongst our weaponry are such diverse elements as fear, surprise, ruthless efficiency, and almost fanatical devotion to the Pope and nice red uniform. Oh,
So, of course, that is the classic Monty Python Spanish Inquisition sketch. The complete series, all 4 seasons, are being released here in the United States in a standard packaging. I think there was some exclusive deluxe packaging you could get shipped in or imported in, but now you can get them all here in the States. All remastered as well in high definition. I have never owned them, Matt, though I gotta admit, I'm leaning towards maybe picking them. I've never seen most of the show. I think I've only seen like a dozen episodes at most. Were you a Monty Python fan?
Yeah, I really liked their films. I was a big fan of their films, but I'm like you. I didn't see a ton of the Flying Circus show. What little I did, it's a lot. It's definitely much more of an acquired taste than the films are. So just know that going in.
Fair enough. I did get the Monty Python box set that was put out in CD in the 90s as well, which I still have, which is basically a collection of all their records that they put out.
Okay, gotcha.
Okay, what else? Oh, of course, was it the final ripoff, which is kind of a greatest hits. If you can track that down too, that's a good starter pack if you're unfamiliar. But the big trilogy, Matt, that's coming out, or at least the newest film, and then a 3-pack, is Bill and Ted Face the Music. Includes the official Bill and Ted Face the Music panel at Comic-Con at home, and then 4 behind-the-scenes featurettes. Would you be picking this up, Matt? Is this a rewatch at all?
I probably won't pick it up. No, I mean, I'll watch it. It'll be one of those things that if I'm cleaning the house and it comes on, I'll just like leave it on and just watch it as I go through the house. But I would never buy it.
Yeah, I don't think I'd buy the 3-pack either. I don't know what it is. I don't. At my advanced age, with only so much time left, I don't think I'll be revisiting these films.
And your time somehow inexplicably moving faster and faster and faster, just egged on faster by the world.
It is entirely so. I mean, time is dilated. All right, we're also going to talk about what else we have here. Shudder is releasing Metamorphosis by Kim Hong-soon. An evil spirit that changes, infiltrates one family, placing one brother in danger while trying to save the other. Mortal, which is a Norwegian thriller, Matt. A young man discovers he has godlike powers based on ancient Norwegian mythology. And then coming new to Blu-ray, Criterion is giving us Girlfriends. Aspiring photographer Susan Weinblatt and would-be poet Anne Monroe are best friends and roommates in a 5-flight walk-up on Manhattan's Upper West Side. But one day, Anne decides to marry and move out. When the best friends go their separate ways, Girlfriends focuses on what happens to the one left behind. It's about valuable, delicate, and complex ties that bind people, be they girlfriends, boyfriends, husbands, or lovers. A brand new 4K restoration supervised by the director Claudia Weil. New interview with Weil and some of the actors as well. A couple other new interviews and some short films by Weil from the early 70s. The Hungarian film Santin Tango from 1994 is being released. Matt, this is supposed to be one of the prizes of Hungarian cinema. Clocks in at about 7 hours. Plotting on a payment they are about to receive, residents of a collapsing collective farm see their plans turn into desolation when they discover that Aremius, a former co-worker who they thought was dead, is coming back to the village. It's supposed to be very good, though long. Full Moon is releasing the uncut version of Tourist Trap in a retro VHS package. Are you familiar with Tourist Trap?
No, I'm not.
Chuck Connors, basically these kids where they break down and they run. Well, just watch it. It is very weird, kind of scary as well, and just kind of off-putting. It's a great little cult horror film. If you haven't seen Tourist Trap, I'd recommend it. I have it on Blu-ray. What I don't know is if this Full Moon release is different than the prior one when it says uncut. From what I was able to piece together, this version has a high-definition version of the uncut Tourist Trap, while the previous release had standard definition inserts of the deleted scenes, I believe is what the case is, and that would be the one that I have. Scream Factory is releasing a couple films. One, Brides of Dracula, another Peter Cushing Dracula film. Sadly, this one with not Christopher Lee. A brand new 2K restoration from the original Interpositive. New audio commentaries, new interviews in the making of the film as well. Scream is also releasing War of the Colossal Beast. This is Glenn Manning. This is after he falls off the Hoover Dam. He emerges in rural Mexico, Matt, brain damaged, disfigured, and very hungry. A brand new 2K restoration from a fine-grained print, a new audio commentary, and more. Scream is also releasing How to Make a Monster from 1958, another 2K restoration. This one is when a master monster makeup man, Pete, is sacked by the new bosses of American International Studios. He decides to use his creations to exact revenge. New audio commentaries on this one as well. Arrow is releasing Burst City, set in a barren, futuristic Tokyo of highways and wastelands. A rowdy group of punk bands and their fans gather to protest the construction of a nuclear power plant. Riot police and the factory owner's Yakuza friends soon move in to break it up, Matt. However, the arrival of a pair of mysterious, metal-clad bikers and a revolt among the disgruntled construction crew makes for a situation that spirals dangerously out of control. A brand new high-definition transfer, original lossless mono Japanese soundtrack, new audio commentaries, new interviews, and more. Kino is releasing a trio of Clint Eastwood films on Blu-ray. Play Misty for Me, The Eiger Sanction, and Beguiled. The comedy, air quotes, classic. I remember thinking it was really funny when I was a kid. I revisited it years later and found it okay. Amazon Women on the Moon, which is a spoof of late-night TV, includes a featurette called BS or Not, the true story of Amazon Women on the Moon, which features interviews with directors John Landis, Joe Dante, co-editor Marshall Harvey, and casting director Julie Selzer, and more. A brand new audio commentary as well by a couple film historians, newly discovered outtakes and dailies from Joe Dante's personal archive, Joe Dante's full intended version of Reckless Youth, deleted scenes, outtakes, and more. The Richard Pryor film Bustin' Loose is being released as well, Matt. And he's a guy he's hired to drive a bus of special ed students across country in this Fast and Furious road movie. Warner Archive is releasing Tennessee Johnson from 1942. The film MGM provided an opportunity to newcomer Van Heflin. He had just earned a Best Supporting Actor Oscar in 1941, so they found him the ideal role as Andrew Johnson, the Tennessee tailor-turned-senator who broke with the South, rose to the vice presidency under Abraham Lincoln, and soon, after Lincoln's assassination, spoilers, the first president who was impeached. Brand new 4K restoration from the best surviving film elements. Some other releases, Matt. Odd Couple 2, The Stooge, this is Dean Martin, Jerry Lewis movie, and then the comedy documentary film Kings of Comedy. The Office, the complete series, is getting a non-Mill Creek set. It includes a bunch of special features, bonus commentaries, webisodes, blooper reels, and 15 hours of deleted scenes. The Michael Jordan Chicago Bulls Dynasty documentary from ESPN, The Last Dance, is getting its physical release. And then finally, Matt, your straight-to-DVD pick of the week is Guest House. Directed by, and I absolutely adore this name, Sam Macaroni. Starring Pauly Shore, Amy Teagarden, Billy Zane, and Steve-O. A newly engaged couple finds the home of their dreams, and it quickly becomes a nightmare when the previous owner's friend continues squatting in their guest house. It leads to a turf war that ultimately ruins their house, their marriage, and their lives. What should we be streaming this week, Matt?
All right, so with the events of today still continuing to unfold and probably will be for several more days possibly to go, I'm going to give you two options. One, if you really want to sink into what America is becoming, a dystopian hellscape that it is, Stanley Kubrick's fun time, Clockwork Orange is available on Netflix for your streaming pleasure. What really made me think of this was the fact that the gentleman in the wheelchair in that film was a gentleman in the wheelchair in a film that we just watched that we're going to talk about next. So it brought it up forefront to my mind and saw that it was available. If you want to go the complete opposite of that and just clear your mind, have a good time,
please
watch an imminently watchable film. Ocean's 11 is now back on Netflix. Why don't you do yourself a favor and sit down and watch it? It's, even if you've seen it before, it will make you forget your troubles for at least an hour and a half.
That's pretty good. That's solid. You know, it's another good one too on Netflix. I just finished rewatching Moneyball.
Okay, I haven't seen that since it came out.
Yeah, that one's really worth rewatching as well. That's very well done. But those are good, Matt. All right, let's go ahead and roll along, whatever. I don't judge you. Do what you do. Live your life. And maybe wrap up our Horror Anthology Marathon-ish thing. And hear a clip from Asylum.
Come to the asylum. Come to the asylum to get killed. Come to the asylum.
Yes, I think the time has come to take violence toys away from him.
To get killed. Come to the asylum. To get killed. Asylum.
Now you hurry and get dressed, and I'll go down the hall and,
Asylum, starring Peter Cushing, Britt Eklund, Herbert Lom, Patrick McGee, Barry Morse, Barbara Parkins, Robert Powell, Charlotte Rampling, Sylvia Sims, Richard Todd, James Villiers. Asylum. Asylum. The most exciting film you'll ever see.
Doesn't it make you think of the Don't trailer from
it does.
Grindhouse?
Or, yeah. That was, man, I wish that movie was made.
They should get on that. Come on, Edgar Wright.
Yeah.
So, Amicus was a British British movie production company, and in the 60s and 70s, they released a bunch of great anthology films. You have Dr. Terror's House of Horrors, Torture Garden, which I have not seen, Tales from the Crypt, The House of Drip Blood, The Vault of Horror, From Beyond the Grave, and then we have here Asylum as well, also known domestically here in the States as House of Crazies. Matt, I love these Amicus films. I think they are basically the top shelf of horror anthology. There's something kind of just wonderfully entertaining about these movies. I don't know what it is. They're not usually typically really scary, but they're always really engaging, and they're a lot of fun and creepy. So, what do you think? Does Asylum kind of fit that mold? Did you have a good time with this?
Yeah, I did have a good time with this in the way that you watch a cheesy film from the 60s or 70s and kind of enjoy the camp of it. You know, I would really like to reiterate that this is not scary, but it is. You know, it's very lean. It moves quickly. It's got its point. You know, it's set up, payoff, boom, on to the next one.
Yeah,
you know, that's how this works.
Well, there's 4 stories as well as the framing sequence,
story,
and it's 88 minutes long.
I know, right? And of course, you know, 90% of these, if you've seen any kind of horror movie, or you're going to guess almost all of these. You're going to guess almost every single thing that happens in this.
Sure.
So there's no mystery at all. But you know what? It's relatively well done. I appreciate the kind of throwback aesthetic of it. You know, it looks like it was done. You know, in a lot of it just looks like it's, you know, done in somebody's basement, or they rented like a castle for a day and just shot something, but they didn't have enough money for actual lights or anything. So it's an interesting little thing. I have to say I enjoyed it. Although I don't know if I would say, and for granted I haven't seen any other Amicus anthology, but I don't know if I would say that this is top shelf or like the best you could do for a horror anthology.
Well, it's definitely a good example of the brand, that's for sure. Though I would probably still recommend your Tales from the Crypt or From Beyond the Grave. Asylum is like right below those for me. So generally, so how the film starts out, Matt, right? So this guy, Dr. Martin, arrives to the Asylum. There's an opening to kind of be the head doctor, the chief doctor at this asylum, where the people are incurably insane, which I like. So he walks in and this guy is stuck in the wheelchair, which I guess is your reference to Clockwork Orange. And he says, well, yeah, the other doctor put me in this wheelchair. He went crazy. And in order for him to get this job, he then has to go visit these other confined people and figure out which one of them is the doctor that went insane.
Right.
That's his job interview, which is a little weird, but all right. So that's how we progress. We start then with Frozen Fear, about a gentleman who basically plots to kill his wife, and the patient is the other woman, right? So we go through. Now, I really like this one. What happens is the doctor basically cuts her up, but she has this kind of weird voodoo protection spell that sort of maybe kind of works. And I think the special effects in that were very effective. How do you feel about Frozen Fear?
Yeah, I mean, it was an interesting little thing. I mean, obviously, husband gone bad, and I like how they were very careful to show you the body parts, but make sure that they were very well wrapped up, and there was not a lick of blood anywhere or anything like that. And it was, even though he had dismembered this body and wrapped it in butcher paper, basically.
But you see him mopping up the plastic bag afterwards.
That's true.
That he
That's
had
very
cut her
true.
up in. So
that's very true. Yes. But yeah, I thought it was, it was relatively clever, and just the kind of, stuntmen wearing gloves coming out of tables and stuff like that, and then like wire pulling something across the floor. I thought it was hokey fun. It was a good little time.
I think the head effect was very effective as well.
Yeah, that was pretty cool.
So next up we have the Weird Tailor. There's this guy Bruno, and he's really he's about to be evicted, and he's a tailor. Peter Cushing shows up, which I'm always excited to see. Peter Cushing wants him to assemble a suit, and under very specific conditions. And he finally does so, but things go horribly awry. There's a weird kind of creepy mannequin in the corner, or as I like to call it, Chekhov's mannequin, which of course does have a role later on in the film. I think out of all of them, Matt, I feel this one was the creepiest.
Yeah.
And probably the most effective. What do you think about the Weird Tailor?
Yeah, I think it was probably the most effective, and it definitely was the creepiest, because they don't really explain a lot of what's going on, which I appreciate. If I had one complaint, I would wish they had maybe fleshed it out a little bit more. But it is what it is. We got what we got, and I think it's overall pretty good.
There you go. Next up, you have Lucy Comes to Stay, featuring Charlotte Rampling and Britt Eklund. And basically, Charlotte's character, Barbara, has been someplace. She's been in an asylum before, right? And she finally is doing better, and she can come home, except maybe not. Now, this is more, again, one of your straightforward, you know where this one's going, basically, from the beginning. As soon as Britt Eklund shows up, you're like, okay, that's what this one is. And still, as these kind of crazy people who are what the split personality, homicidal side, killer type things go, I thought it was okay. This may, I think, for me, have been the weakest of the set. What do you think?
Yeah, I would say that's true. I mean, like you said, the second the friend shows up, it's, you know exactly what's going on. It's really just waiting to see how this is all going to play out. And it's done, in a pretty by the books kind of way. It's not really any kind of surprises or anything like that. So, yeah, it was only okay.
There you go. And then finally, we have Mannequins of Horror. Martin interviews Dr. Byron. He holds Rutherford in contempt, I'm reading here. And basically, Byron explains that he's working towards being able to transfer his soul into these little automaton, little robot things. Now, what's weird is I I specifically remember the ending of this one when it gets crushed and you see the little viscera and all that stuff come out of the little robot body. I don't know why that stuck with me. That I didn't remember any of the other ones, but that one clearly did. So that one I rather enjoyed too. That was just a weird little Twilight Zone, actually more Outer Limitsy thing for me.
Yeah, I will say I was when I was reading up on this after I watched it, I think 2 of these actually appeared in other films or in TV shows, like those anthology horror TV shows. This one and the Taylor one, the Weird Taylor, I know the Weird Taylor for sure appeared in another film in another format, but this one maybe the other one that appeared in another way. So that's maybe why you remember it.
Well, I think there were just different adaptations is what it is. Maybe that's what it is. I'm thinking of the different. It wasn't like they were just copy and pasted. These stories were adapted previously in other works.
Right.
So maybe that's what it is. It was in an episode of Monsters called Mannequins of Horror as well. So even same story.
Okay.
So maybe that's what it is. That's what I remembered was that episode of that show. That makes a lot more sense to me since I haven't seen the film. All right, let's wrap it up, Matt. We finally get the reveal. How did our framing system work?
I mean, it worked fine. I mean, like you said at the beginning of the segment, the entire premise of the framing device, kind of relies on this kind of weird, like, sure, okay, fine. He just kind of goes with it kind of thing. And this is coming from the get-go. This is coming from beat one. But, it works okay. But at the same time, it just moves very quickly. It's like, reveal. Okay, done. Movie's over.
Now, I admit I did miss that. I did not get who the bad guy was the whole time.
Okay.
I actually thought it was one of the other characters. So,
gotcha.
I guess kudos to them or shame on me, depending on how you want to look at it. But so I enjoyed the hell out of this one, Matt. I gave it a B+. Where do you come down with Asylum?
I think I'm going to give it a B-. It's enjoyable, an enjoyable diversion.
Fair enough. Asylum is currently available on Amazon Prime. If you've had a chance to see it, go ahead and shoot us an email at feedback@thefirstrun.com. As always, of course, we'd love to hear your thoughts. I just hope that next doctor at the Asylum fares a little better than Dr. Martin does.
I doubt it.
All right, folks, let's go ahead and bring the whole show home and discuss our 5 favorite Bill Murray scenes.
It's Christmas Eve. It's the one night of the year when we all act a little nicer. We smile a little easier. We share a little more. For a couple of hours out of the whole year, we are the people that we always hoped we would be. It's a miracle. It's really a sort of a miracle because it happens every Christmas Eve. And if you waste that miracle, you're going to burn for it. I know what I'm talking about. You have to do something. You have to take a chance. You do have to get involved. There are people that are having trouble making their miracle happen. There are people that don't have enough to eat. There are people that are cold. You can go out and say hello to these people. You can take an old blanket out of the closet and say, here. You can make them a sandwich and say, oh, by the way, here. I get it now. And if you give, then it can happen. Then the miracle can happen to you. It's not just the poor and the hungry. It's everybody who's got to have this miracle. And it can happen tonight for all of you. If you believe in this spirit thing, the miracle will happen, and then you'll want it to happen again tomorrow. You won't be one of these bastards who says Christmas is once a year and it's a fraud. It's not. It can happen every day. You just got to want that feeling. And if you like it and you want it, you'll get greedy for it. You'll want it every day of your life, and it can happen to you. I believe in it now. I believe it's going to happen to me now. I'm ready for it. It's great. It's a good feeling. It's really better than I felt in a long time.
So, of course, that is Bill Murray as Frank Cross from Scrooged, a film that did not quite make the cut for me, but I do love that scene. His Christmas Carol transfer, right, where he goes from Scrooge to the guy who loves Christmas. So, Matt, though I got to admit, could you please stop the goddamn hammering is also one of my all-time favorites from Scrooge.
Yes, it is. It is indeed. That's something I still quote to this day, and nobody gets what I'm talking about.
I know. It's so sad. I think it's just part of our aging process.
I guess so.
I routinely drop lines, and people are like, what the talking about. Plus, we also watch a lot of obscure stuff. All right, Matt, start us off. What's your fifth favorite Bill Murray scene?
All right, so my fifth favorite Bill Murray scene, it's a bit of a long one. I would say it's really the bowling tournament at the end of Kingpin, where we see I think the Farrelly brothers just allowed Bill Murray to improvise and just be insane throughout the entire thing. Him flying around, kissing his ball, playing up to the crowd, his hair basically sticking up off of his head 3 feet high. It's a fun scene. It's a kind of a good look at manic Bill Murray. I don't know if I've ever seen Kingpin all the way through. No. I think I had soured on the Farrelly brothers at that point. Mm-hmm. And Randy Quaid too. I was never a big fan of. Mm-hmm. So I just never had any juice to watch it. Maybe sometime I'll actually sit down and watch the whole thing, but fair enough. My number 5 then is the dentist scene from Little Shop of Horrors, where he plays the guy who's just he's a fan of pain. And Steve Martin plays the whacked out Elvis obsessed, I think, dentist, and is basically just tries to torture him, but for some reason Bill Murray just wants more and more until Steve Martin basically kicks him out of his office. But to this day, another quotable thing, Al goes, candy bar! Candy bar! You know, that scene where he's all excited because he's going to get a candy bar for going to the dentist. So, I don't know. I just love that scene with Bill Murray. What do you got? I forgot about that scene with Bill Murray.
That's a good one.
I haven't. Yeah. All right. Okay. So my number 4 is Bill Murray playing himself in Zombieland. Basically, great little cameo. Comes out, gives some witticisms of Murray, just basically talks just like he's like nothing's going on and nothing's really changed. And then he ends up getting shot, and he lists out some of his regrets, which is always a good little piece. Fun little cameo in a pretty good film.
I agree. Actually, it was my number 5 for quite a while, up until basically 10 minutes ago when I swapped it out for the dentist scene.
Okay.
So, but it's a good pick. My number 4 then. It's a quieter scene, and it's much more subtle, but it's the pool scene in Rushmore, where he's sitting there just throwing the golf balls into the pool. Mm-hmm. The kid comes by, and he throws the golf ball at the kid, and then he walks up to the diving board, cigarette in hand, whiskey in the other, and puts him down, and then just a cannonball into the pool, and then just kind of sits there at the bottom in that kind of fetal position after a while, because he so desperately wants to be with the teacher Rosemary, and she sees him kind of flirting with the other guy, and it's just, I don't know what it is about that. It was just always such a really kind of just, it's not really a powerful moving scene. It's just so expertly done, and Murray is so subtly brilliant in that particular scene that it's just always stuck with me. So that's my 4.
So that's my number 3. Yeah. I don't have much to add to that. I mean, it's really a scene that is conveyed, everything is conveyed that you need to see, and gestures and facial expressions and sidelong looks, and really it just kind of really hits home the kind of pathos and his state of mind and everything else just without saying a word.
There you go. So my number 3 is a line, Matt, that I'm probably going to be in your top 2. I'm thinking it is a line that I quote to this day. Whenever something bad happens, which of course is dogs and cats living together, mass hysteria. From Ghostbusters, when they're in the mayor's office, explaining to him exactly what's about to happen. That's got the whole dickless scene. Yes, I can confirm this man has no... I mean, all that scene, all that stuff is in that particular scene. That's my number 3.
All right. So my number 2 is from Lost in Translation, but it's not any of the scenes I think you'd be thinking of. It's one of the funniest scenes in the movie where his business partner sends over a masseuse escort, to his room. He does a polite thing, lets her in, but he quickly discovers that there's some ulterior things going on, and he's just not interested. But the escort is having none of it and just keeps throwing herself on him, and it becomes progressively more ridiculous as it goes. So I thought it's the funniest scene in a movie that's not really particularly funny.
I had forgotten all about that scene. I got to rewatch that movie. So my number 2 then is the last scene in Lost in Translation, with him and Scarlett Johansson in the street, and he leans over and whispers something in her ear. We do not get to hear what that is. But it's such a powerful moment in that film, And it is kind of always stuck with me, just the way that Coppola frames that thing and how personal and intimate it is and how she leaves it to them where it's just between the two of them and we don't get to hear it. And it just perfectly wraps that movie. So that's my number 2.
I agree. All right, so my number 1 is Dogs and Cats Living Together. This, when you said this, I immediately went to that because honestly, it's something I still say to this day. And that thing is going to live longer than I am. So,
Well, you could believe Mr. Pecker.
My name is Peck.
Or you could accept the fact that this city is headed for a disaster of biblical proportion.
What do you mean, biblical?
What he means is Old Testament, Mr.
Yes.
Mayor. Real wrath of God type stuff.
Exactly.
Fire and brimstone coming down from the skies. Rivers and seas boiling.
40 years of darkness, earthquakes, volcanoes.
The dead rising from the grave. Human sacrifice, dogs and cats living together, mass hysteria.
That's the one I went with.
I am disappointed in you, Matt, because this is Bill Murray's best scene.
I jump ship in Hong Kong, and I make my way over to Tibet, and I get on as a looper at a course over there in Himalayas.
A looper?
A looper. You know, a caddy, a looper. Jack. So I tell them I'm a pro Jack. And who do you think they give me? The Dalai Lama himself. The 12th son of the Lama. The flowing robes, the grace, bald. Striking. So I'm on the first tee with him. I give him the driver. He hauls off and whacks one. Big hitter, the Lama. Long. Into a 10,000-foot crevice right at the base of this glacier. Do you know what the Lama says?
No.
Gunga Galunga. Gunga Gunga La Gunga. So we finish 18, and he's gonna stiff me. And I say, hey, Lama, hey, how about a little something, you know, for the effort, you know? And he says, there won't be any money. But when you die, on your deathbed, you will receive total consciousness. So I got that going for me, which is nice.
All right, so you have 2 classic lines in that one segment, Matt, that I still say to this day, of course. I got that going for me, which is nice, which I don't know how many times I've said. And, of course, Big Hitter, the Llama, which is another one of my all-time favorite lines. I'm surprised that none of the Caddyshack stuff showed up on your list at all.
Yeah, so I was never a huge fan of Caddyshack, which I know is a controversial statement for people of a certain age. And, you know, Bill Murray's shtick in that is just so over the top. Like, I felt like there's more, that there were better representations, because he's obviously doing this mealy mouse side character as entertaining as he is. So I figured I'd leave it off because I figured you would bring it on home for us, and I wasn't disappointed.
Disappointing. Big Hitter, the Llama. Okay, so any honorable mentions, Matt? I had the karaoke scene in Lost in Translation, the theft of the groundhog in Groundhog Day, Chicks Dig Me from Stripes.
Yeah.
What else? The rabbit ear antenna dance from Life Aquatic with Steve Zissou. What else? We have the ESP test from Ghostbusters, which I think really is the perfect distillation of who Bill Murray is as a comedic actor. His role in Tootsie, I think maybe the one where he's talking to Dustin Hoffman. This is getting into a weird area. And then I talked about Zombieland. What else you got?
I don't really have much else, honestly. Those are all solid picks, my friend.
You're welcome. Do you think Bill Murray needs to do like a Liam Neeson action thing? Is that what he's missing in his career now?
But do you think he's too old for that now? He's getting up there in years.
Michael Caine did one in Harry Brown when he was like in his 80s, I think it was, late 70s, early 80s, which is actually not that bad a film if you haven't seen Harry Brown, but still. Yeah, no, I think it would be really weird if he took this dramatic action turn. But it was something that was on my mind when I was putting this together. I'm thinking, what genre has he not really done? No, I haven't seen Meatballs, and I think it was a contender for our 80s.
It was, yes.
Sex comedy, raunch comedy thing.
Yeah.
Have you seen Meatball?
No. I have not seen Meatballs. I have not seen it.
So there you go. So that's why I didn't make the list, folks. What else did we miss? Shoot us an email at feedback@thefirstrun.com. Next week, Matt, it's supposed to be the trial of the Chicago 7 and then Blood Creek, I believe, which, do you know what Blood Creek is?
I don't.
So all right. So if we end up doing that, there's a reason why I chose that, and you'll see why I think when the opening credits roll. So
Okay.
I am kind of curious to check that one out. Trial of Chicago 7, I guess. I don't know. We'll have to see. I know the Freaky is coming out. Is it next week? So it won't be in time for the next show. But we may actually venture back into the theaters, potentially. That's that Freaky Friday, Vince Vaughn, horror body swap thing.
Okay.
But we'll see. We'll keep you guessing, folks. And we are weeks away from our banned film marathon.
Mere weeks.
All right. In the meantime, check us out on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube. Do a search for The First to Run. Scroll. Eventually you will find us. Head over to Apple Podcasts. Give us a review. We'll read it on the air, and it'll help other people find the show. And I guess that's it, Matt, right?
That's it.
So let's go ahead then, take an extended break, and we'll see you all soon. Take care.
I've been saving almond for this. I think I need a root canal. Sure, I need a long, slow root canal. Let's go. I've been saving all month for this. I think I need a root canal. I'm sure I need a long, slow root canal. Let's go. I heard a history of dental problems.
Shut up!
Yes, doctor.